And I'm here with Riki Ott, marine toxicologist and community activist who survived the Exxon Valdex oil disaster. She has spent many months in the Gulf giving community talks and workshops. She's about to head back to the Gulf in the coming week. She's here in the Bay Area giving a talk tonight in Oakland, and we're at the KALW studios. She was just on my radio show talking about the major health effects she's seen in the Gulf. We did reach out to the U.S. government, the EPA, NOAA, and the National Oil Spill Commission. EPA said they'd get someone. They never called us back. NOAA never got back to us, and the National Oil Spill Commission said they couldn't provide anyone because they're, quote, going out of business. So, Riki, let's talk more about health effects. The EPA's sort of official statement is that the dispersants are safe. The fish are safe. In fact, the U.S. military is feeding the fish to Marines and soldiers, and they want this to be fed to these soldiers all across this country. They've already started eating it in Louisiana.
Okay, well, there's a couple things here. Let's think about all the federal agencies in the Gulf that have said everything's okay. The water quality, the air quality, the seafood safety. And then let's think about 9/11. And a lot of these same people, especially with EPA and OSHA, are still in office. And they are saying, remember what they said with 9/11? They said it was okay then, too. And I think we just don't want to create a panic. I mean, what would have happened if New York had been evacuated? Too big for the imagination. Would have really messed up the economy. And I think now we know that that was a mistake with 9/11 because the 9/11 responders are sick. And Congress is having to deal with that now. And we're, 10 years into this? So let's leapfrog now to the Gulf, where these same federal agencies are saying it's all okay. What's really going on here is that the federal agencies know darn well it's not okay because they have been, oil spill cleanup was, during Exxon Valdex, was considered hazardous waste, and it was regulated as a hazardous waste cleanup. Workers should have had respirators then, they still didn't. But OSHA was well aware that the loophole in its regulations was something that says workers, primary responsible parties, have to report all work-related illnesses, here's the exemption, one simple sentence, unless it's cold or flu. And the problem is that the chemical illness, your body only has so many ways to say, I'm sick, to get your attention. And one of the first indications, if you're breathing stuff, is your nose starts to shut down. And you have these chemical, this cold and flu-like, your body starts producing mucus. We don't want this stuff. We don't want this chemical coming in. I've heard, of hair falling out. What are the ways your body has to detox? You sweat through the skin. You pee it out. You breathe it out. You put it in your hair or your fingernails, and you get rid of it. So these are all ways. So I guess to loop it back to 9/11 and what the government's saying is, the government knows that the laws are not protective enough of worker safety, public health. But what's the regulatory agency supposed to do? They're operating under laws that have never been updated for 30 and 40 years now. And EPA, in that regulatory framework, approved dispersants. And so now, what's EPA supposed to say? They're not safe? That would create a panic. So EPA has boxed itself in with the government here into old laws and then acting in a framework that is no longer protective. In this day and age, we know these chemicals cause health problems. Let's face it, and let's help these people, and let's make sure this doesn't happen again. That's where we need to go. We need to fix the laws. We need to fix the thinking that doesn't allow for chemical illnesses to be recognized.
Speaking of hair falling out, we got an email this morning from Mary, who lives in Long Beach, Mississippi, about 1.5 blocks from the Gulf, and she said that her hair is falling out and she feels completely helpless because she doesn't know where to turn. You brought up the 9/11 responders, and sadly, it took Jon Stewart's The Daily Show to embarrass the government so much that they actually finally, just this last year, voted on a bill to fund health care for these workers.
Thank God for Jon Stewart. And this is the role of media, though. This is why now people need to be calling their radio stations and insisting that this gets covered. I mean, send emails out to your radio stations, Fox News, Democracy Now, whoever, and say, we want this back in the news. I have heard of hair falling out all along in the Gulf as well. I mean, all these seemingly like normal symptoms can actually be related to chemical poisoning.
Well, and this isn't getting much attention. We were able to connect with Dr. Rodney Soto. He's one of the only doctors in the Gulf region treating these symptoms. He's in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. We had a really hard time finding other doctors who would actually talk about this. I understand that you were actually contacted by 2 doctors who said they were afraid to take on this issue.
I have been. And these doctors said, I am not big enough to take on BP. They realize that if they have clients, patients, and they're treating them for chemical illnesses, this is going to have to stand up. The insurance company is going to challenge this claim. They're going to have to go to court. And these doctors have a nice life. They don't want to spend the next, until they retire in court fighting the insurance companies and fighting BP, which is where this will wind up. Now, on the good news side, there are other doctors besides Dr. Soto, and what I've made a mental note after our talk this morning to get their names and post them on my website. I know we have somebody in Mississippi, I just can't remember his name. So there are not very many, but there are other doctors who are doing this sort of holistic method and looking at this as a toxicology problem and how do we get to the root of this.
And in our remaining minutes, what else can people do? The media angle is really important. Contact local media, tell them you want information about this, give them names, give them Riki's name, say interview her. Are you still receiving interview requests?
They've tapered off quite a bit, but contact your national radio programs too and say this needs to be back, especially now. And here's why. This is how everybody could really help the Gulf folks. We need to get this story back in a way that people won't forget it. Look at what happened with the Santa Barbara oil blowout in 1969. That was a galvanizing point for America to rally around environmental awareness and take a stand and make changes. Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act. I mean, people said this is not okay. Environmental awareness bloomed. The Gulf disaster has the potential to be the same galvanizing rod for America in terms of energy awareness this time. Not environmental awareness, but energy awareness and health awareness. And the federal government and BP know that, and that's why they shut this story down. Let's get it back. And we, in the Gulf, people are organizing to have a very memorable one-year memorial. And there will be blogs on this, there will be websites on this. Pay attention. There'll be a way to download this information, have kitchen table democracy in your own homes. Invite people over. It's a lot of what the teach-in is going to be. We're doing a teach-in, 3 hours of pre-recorded programming with not only the real Gulf story, the problems echoing outside the Gulf, the real costs of our cheap oil and coal addiction, and then what people are really doing in communities that can be replicated in other communities. So that's going to be our 3-hour show. Let's support people. There's also going to be a huge fundraiser April 20th in New Orleans, the House of Blues. Music, of course, be in New Orleans, but it's all going to be going towards health, long-term and short-term health care needs of residents in the Gulf.
And there is a lot of organizing going on in the Gulf, but we're just not, again, we're not hearing about it.
We're not seeing it. So the idea with this teaching is to get this story out to people. So rikiott.com, and let's not forget the Gulf. Let's create a panic.
Riki Ott is a marine toxicologist and community activist. She survived Exxon Valdex. She's been in the Gulf for many, many months, and she's about to go back shortly. And you can find more information about her right under this video. Riki, thank you so much.
You're welcome.